to the club. So, hello, everybody. Happy Saturday morning. And I think it's going to be a hot one. So anybody here do the reset this week? No. Oh, Chelsea did it this week. Chelsea, how did it go?
It went really good. I think the third day was the day that I felt it the most. It was like, whoa. I was hitting, like I could tell that that the toxins and tons of stuff were like leaving my body. It wasn't like a crazy detox, but I could just feel it.
Yeah.
Like I could feel the strain on my body when I woke up that morning. It was like, whoa, I need to take my pink drink first thing today, like immediately as soon as my feet hit the floor. I need to take it. Yeah. So, but it was really good. And I lost a lot of inflammation. I didn't weigh myself because personally, we don't have a scale. We don't even own a scale.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not really what it's about for you.
No, for me, it was about like getting rid of all the puffy, like, inflammation and awful digestion that was happening because I added dairy back into my diet. So I was like, woo. But I love. I've been taking it slow with integrating the new, like integrating food back into my diet. And I've been following the pivotal meals. Oh, like the meal ideas. We're at camp, so I can't like just get my own groceries because like the food is already here.
Right.
But I can make healthier choices based on the options that they provide. But the workouts are so good. Like seriously, like I don't work out.
Me either.
I don't. And I have been doing it together and it's been really fun. And so it's been nice quality time together and it's been really beautiful and I'm really sore. It was
working, right?
It was like the biggest piece of humble pie in the world because it's like, wow, 5 push-ups shouldn't really kill me, but hey. Here we are.
Good job.
But the slight edge really helped with it because it was like, instead of being like, wow, this is pathetic, only 5 push-ups and I'm like already feeling it. It's like you start small. And I was reminded of the verse, do not despise the day of small beginnings.
And that's an incredibly beautiful lead in to chapter 9, which is where we're going to start, is you have to start with a penny. You can't start with nothing. You start with a penny. So you start with 1 push-up. Starting small is the beginning of everything. So that's beautiful, Chelsea. Love that. As I was reading this, you know, the concept, that Chinese proverb, that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. It actually starts even before the first step because it starts with that decision to make the first step, which, and that's an incredible, I mean, Reset's an incredible example of that we're doing just right now. The decision to purchase the Reset, the decision as to which day you're going to start the Reset, the decision to start, to do. All of those things are incredible examples of the slight edge. They're just moving the needle that fraction. The decision to order the Reset doesn't change your life. It doesn't. But without the decision, you've taken away that choice of change that it could make. It's just so fascinating. In the beginning here, page 128, there's a story about Steve Jobs and about how he started writing his first story, and it was about a troubled schoolgirl. And he'd done a few pages and he thought it was gross and he threw it in the garbage. Off he went. He was in university at the time. And his wife saw these papers in the garbage and she digs them out and kind of dusts them off. And she starts reading and she puts them back on his desk. And when he comes home, she says to him, this is worth finishing. Yes, it was worth starting, but this is worth finishing. And when he finished it, she said, what she said exactly was, I think you've got something here, she told him, maybe something worth finishing. It's the bottom of page 128. And he says, she was right. He did finish it. The paperback rights sold for nearly $500,000. And that story launched his career. So it made me think, what things are we throwing in the trash because we don't think they're good enough? When if we reviewed, reflected, refined, and offered, what might they be worth? And one of the first things I thought about, that message that's not good enough, that you don't send. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anyone else thoughts on what might you have tossed without finishing, that as you think about it might be a piece of something worth finishing? Kelsey.
I was just reflecting today on all of the times that I've been it's called soft selling, where I don't necessarily have a ton of Plexus stuff personally in my stories or my content. Usually I just kind of drip it, kind of in the background. Every once in a while I'll say something about it, but really it's in the background for me personally. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I wondered, like, is this really worth it? Is this really is this gonna work? Like, is this really actually gonna do anything? And then when I started sharing about the reset, I didn't call it the reset. I called it a reboot because I don't know.
Well, because actually that's really smart, Chelsea, because in Canada, we should not be using the term reset in our social media.
Right. And so I decided to call it a reboot. But I just shared like 3 or 4 days of it, and the views on my stories got lower and lower and lower, the more they've ever been. And I was like, wow, this is discouraging. Yeah. But the amount of messages I have gotten of people interested in starting, not necessarily the reset, but Plexus in general, I was blown away. I was like, seriously? Because I was just thinking like, wow, all of that stuff, months of relationship building, months of soft selling, months of serving, months of all of this stuff that I'm like, is this really going to be worth it? Like, am I just like doing too much work for like little, fruit? And I'm just like, wow, like, and I'm starting to, and I'm not going to catch my chickens before they hatch, but people are at least talking to me about it, messaging me about it. And I was just like, wow, that doesn't happen too often.
Very good. Yeah.
And so I just felt encouraged by that. But wow, I'm really glad that I didn't just wait till this 3-day reset to start really sharing.
Yeah.
And then I had all of those months of little everyday, consistent, small things. It was better than nothing.
It was service.
Mattered.
Yeah. And the service matters. Yeah. Oh, that's excellent, Chelsea. That's excellent. Anyone else comment on something that you may have not realized was of value that you threw in the trash, didn't realize of value? Yes, Amy.
Well, I'm going to pick on the kids because it's that whole pick up your backpack, put your shoes away, hang up your coat, repetition and saying it again. And at what stage? And I do give up. Okay, I do. Some stuff I don't, but some stuff I really actually do.
Yep.
Like, I'm just going to do it myself.
Mhm.
I need that to happen. And knowing that it takes that repetition, saying it a gazillion times now means that in 20 years, I don't have to say it a gazillion times.
It does. It truly does.
Is that how it works, Grandma?
It does work that way. It does work that way.
You'll become the soundtrack in their head.
You will. You absolutely will. Oh, goodness, that's good. So as we move forward, on page 130, he kind of goes through the whole thing of we need a penny. We need to start with something. And he goes through the story about how we started as a fragment of something. And it turned into who we are when we were born, who we are now. But as he goes a little bit further, he talks about what might be your penny. So on page 130, he talks about maybe your penny is exercise or activity, that little bit of activity every day. And no, it doesn't make a difference the first day, and it doesn't make a difference the second day, and it doesn't even make a difference the 21st day. But in a year, it makes a difference. Oh, and so over time, it makes a difference. And then he talked about reading, and we've talked about this one a lot of times, but the reading a book, reading a page, reading 10 pages, reading 10 pages of a book doesn't make a difference today. Probably doesn't make a difference tomorrow. But he talks here about if you keep it up every day for a year, you'll have read about a dozen life-transforming books. It's not the first day, it's not the second day. Hi, Leona. It's not the third day, but over time, it adds up. But you have to actually read the pages. And I know for myself, it's like, oh, I haven't done it today and I haven't done it tomorrow and it won't matter. So I'll just do it all, Saturday. Chelsea's shaking her head already. She's like, it doesn't work that way. It's like eating your whole food for the month on one day. It's like it just doesn't work that way. Because to read that whole book, after you've skipped all those days, you don't get the same thing out of the book because you don't put the same value on the content. You don't put the same intention on the content. So in this process, it made me think about we are today what we've done in the past. All those things, and lots of us here have done slight edge things to get to where we are today. So then let's look into the future where we'd like to go. What might be that one slight edge thing that either we want to start doing or that we want to stop doing? Because sometimes I think it's just important that we stop doing something as it is that we start doing something. So I'm really interested to hear from you what you might think of that would be kind of your penny from the Slight Edge book, your penny piece that you would either start or stop. And if no one's talking yet, I'll give you an example. And my example would be a mom example, because I have, moms and grandmas here, but a mom example. as to how soon in the day do you say yes to one of your children? And might that be a start? Yes, Chelsea.
Immediately. For my kids, anyways. It's like, mommy, water, please. Okay. Like, as soon as they wake up, like, I mean, I won't hear the end of it if I don't do it right away.
Yeah, so they get a yes. That's the first thing they hear is a yes from mom. That is not necessarily what my kids heard first. Just saying. So kudos to you, Chelsea.
It really depends what they're asking for,
Yeah, I guess so.
right?
I feel like there's sometimes that I choose to blissfully lay in bed and hear them go to school. So I don't actually converse with them until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And asking for the ice cream at that time of day is still a no.
I guess I'm trying to get you to think about what might this be that isn't kind of our standard thinking about that penny thing, you know, that slight edge thing. Is it saying yes to yourself? Is it saying, yes, I'm going to stay in bed 5 more minutes so that I can get up and feel like I'm actually ready for the day because I'm meditating, is it saying yes to that 10 pages of reading?
I have something I want to say yes to. And it might not necessarily be an everyday thing, but for me, like, I think the idea of doing it every day seems overwhelming, and then I just won't end up doing it at all. But for me, having one day a week, not just any day a week, but like a specific day, I don't know, like Monday or something, where I make a business ask one day a week.
Yeah.
I feel like that will definitely compound over time, because if I don't ask people, then I won't know if they'll actually be open to it. But only ask every once in a while to someone random, then I'm gonna have a lot less no's before I'll ever get to a yes. And it'll take a lot longer.
Right. Right. So that's a great example of a beginning of a penny that you would get to send and say yes to sending one business ask. It's interesting because when I think about it, I don't want to say no to some things that I recognize would be helpful to my progress to say no to. Like saying no to overthinking a message.
Hmm.
I think it's interesting. My tendency is always to add one more thing versus let go of something. Amy?
Well, I've been working at that get up and go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
I have the flexibility that I can go for a walk and then I can change my clothes to what I'm going to wear for the day. I can go for the walk and then I can have the shower or the coffee, partly before the heat, because and yesterday I didn't beat the heat going out, so I didn't walk. And this morning I didn't do it at 6 a.m, which would have been smart.
The temperature was good then, actually.
Yeah, I still did it before our book study, and listening to the book while I walk so that I can add those 10 pages and think about them and walk
Right. Right.
in a way that works for me. It's not way early in the morning, but it's getting the day going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was laying in bed listening to it anyway. Now I'm just up and go.
If we go on through this chapter a little bit to page 133, just near the bottom, there's a paragraph and it says, every day in every moment, you get to exercise choices that will determine whether or not you will become a great person living a great life. Greatness is not something predetermined, predestined, or carved into your fate by forces beyond your control. Greatness is always in the moment of the decision, but you have to start with a penny. And greatness is in the eye of the beholder. Because if we went around this group and asked, who do you see as someone in your life that's great? Chances are it's not the prime minister. Chances are it's not even the rock star. Chances are it's more like a grandparent or a teacher or somebody that made a difference in your life. So sometimes when you look in the mirror, you're the one. You're the one making a difference in someone else's life. You carry the greatness. And I think we often think about greatness as being outside of us, instead of understanding that it's inside of us to give.
That makes me think of something, Sherry. Can I share it?
Yes.
I really feel like often we are not living God's best for our life. And by best, I don't mean like our life is perfect and everything is wonderful. And I don't even think it looks the same for everybody. But my dreams are so much smaller and achievable sounding than the dreams that God has for my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to dream with him for a few reasons.
Yeah.
He knows everything and he's got way better plans than I do. But he's also he wants me to go above and beyond anything I could ever do on my own strength. And that's going to take a lot of self-growth. Because the great, amazing things that you see people doing, like, again, they didn't just wake up one day and they're like, wow, look at all this stuff I can do. Like, it was like,
exactly.
it was years being in the trenches, being in the secret place, being in the hiding, being in the unknown, nameless and faceless, you know what I mean? Just being faithful with the little that we've been given. And then he says, okay, you've been faithful with the little bit. I'll give you some more to be faithful with. And then we're going to need more of his grace to be able to accomplish it, because it's like, well, that looks a little impossible. I don't know. You know what I mean? And so, but each time you get past those things that you feel are impossible, you're like, wow, this is just normal life.
Yeah.
This is so normal. And the next thing that he has for you just seems so daunting. But if you stay faithful and you ask the Lord to give you grace and you apply yourself to the daily, whatever, being out of your comfort zone in that area, then it's going to become your comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly right, Chelsea.
Glory to glory. But anyways, all I'm saying is I want to dream with him, not just my own dreams, because I'm always going to be like, this is safe. This is somewhat achievable. This is somewhat, but yeah. And his plans always work out. Always work out.
Much better. Well, I think that kind of goes along with what he's saying in this book on page 135. He talks about the smallest things are the biggest things.
Yeah.
And this is where he talks about this person, George Bailey, and he kind of was deciding his life had no meaning and he wasn't making a difference. And it's that whole movie piece about he wasn't good enough. He wasn't enough. He wasn't doing enough. He wasn't there enough. And it seemed his life didn't matter. And then the angel came and just started saying to him, but what if you hadn't been here? What if you weren't here? And it made me really think about how big a circle, how big the ripples are if we are not present. And it took me back, and if you're kind enough to let me tell you this story, it took me back to many years ago, and I'm not going to get detailed on the exact number, but many years ago when my father-in-law suffered a heart attack at home and died. And our small community didn't have very many resources for care. It was a long, long way when the ambulance was called. It was a long, long time. And from that, I felt frustrated that there was nothing. And so decided to take some more first aid training, decided to be able to teach standard first aid, CPR, like basic things, because we didn't have that. And from that little nugget, another group of people began to think about it. We got together, we raised money, we brought an ambulance into our community, we trained people. That nugget grew and grew and grew until in the community, there are resources. And many years later, oh, shoot, I thought I told this story enough, I wasn't going to cry. Many years later, when my husband had a heart attack, the ambulance was there. And the ambulance came and he had the medical resources. And he is still here. And what would have happened if that whole little seed hadn't begun? That little thing. So you never know which little thing, how many little things are going to make the difference in the future. But I can guarantee you that the little thing you do today will make a difference in the future. The person you talk to, the thing you think about, the post you share, it will make a difference. So I'd like you to just sort of think about what little thing in your life you may have done that you can see is changing your life or the life of somebody else. And I know everybody here has examples. And I'll call on you if you don't offer. I'm going to start with Linda.
Well, I'm hoping I'm changing the life of my grandchildren, with encouragement and spending time with them and helping to encourage their work ethic when they help me do jobs and that. So, yeah.
I'd say that's more than a hope, Linda. That's absolutely what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you can see it in how your grandchildren are responding to you today.
Well, they want me to come with them when they head to the pool and do fun stuff too. So,
yeah.
And I don't think it's just because I buy them treats.
It can't hurt, but yes.
Oh,
I'll go
Elsie.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go next. The thing that comes to mind for me is I taught myself how to play piano chords. And that is something that when I started out, I was very I was very poor at it. Right? And I taught myself through Google Images, literally.
Cool.
I was like, what's an A chord? And I'm like, this. And it shows me, I'm like, what's a B chord? And then I'm like, oh. And then when I saw it, I got the hang of it. And I was like, this is so simple. But I always thought it was so complicated. So I never did it. So now I teach people how to play piano chords in like half an hour. I teach them the basics and how to even play a song with chord in half an hour. And I can teach them the basics and I can help them walk through all of that, but it's their choice to continue in that. And if they don't, then I mean, that's whatever. But I've planted a seed and I've made it available to them in a way that I wish someone had done for me, because it would have taken me a lot less time if someone would have been like, let's explain this really simply as opposed to like making this really complicated and then I just want to quit. So I really love doing that. And some of those people now know how to play some chords and can play worship songs every once in a while in different ministry settings. And so it feels like, wow, I made a difference. That's so exciting, even though it was like so small, half an hour.
Absolutely, you made a difference. See, that's it. It's not about the time. It's about the gift.
It took me a long time to learn it myself.
It's the gift. That's awesome, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Who's going next? Amy's pointing, but she's not pointing to anybody that hasn't gone. So, Amy, are you going next?
I was assigning Leona.
Yeah.
But
She gets to wrap it up.
oh, good. Okay, good point. Because I've kind of forgot the question a little bit, because in my head.
Me too, Amy. That's why I'm excited you're going. So maybe you can I was typing and sending something. So I would need a refresher also.
Leona's making a difference.
Thank you, Leona.
So the question is, what's a little thing in your life has totally changed either your life or someone else's life? What starting from something small?
I feel I've been reading about, they talk about kids walking and their gazillion resilience to try again and to do again. And it doesn't feel like a small thing this week. It might not feel like a small thing next week, but my 13-year-old really doesn't want to do swimming lessons. And I'm just going to make her. And I'm really not quite sure what's going to happen if she doesn't voluntarily get in the bathing suit.
You'll figure it out. Because and because that may be the small thing that saves her life or saves a friend of hers lives in the future, is the fact that she took those swimming lessons and learned to swim and had the confidence to do that, because you don't know. Leona, you're on.
Pressure's on.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, These are always hard questions for me because I don't reflect enough. I feel like in life, I need to take time to reflect more. But the first thing that came to my mind was it's always my kids is always the first thing that I relate to. And for me, I feel like I'm working hard at being my authentic self, like who I really am. And so my kids have seen me do different things in life, like switching jobs or creating, like I started tutoring. So I created my own tutoring business, right? Utilizing Plexus and the tools that it's given me for my body, not only, but also for our family income, right? So being that example for them to see that I have to be true to myself. I don't want to fall in line with what the world says I should do, or what the world believes I'm good at, or what the world wants for me, or it tells me what to do, right? Me being my true authentic self and being okay with changing things along the way to fully embody who that person really is. And just encouraging my kids to do the same when they get into tough situations or they're struggling with who they are or what they want to do, or just what their friends want them to do. So I see those pieces already showing up in them, right? Like if they're lacking confidence, and just reminding them who they are, who God says they are, right? So that was what's coming up for me. Just showing my kids that it's okay to change things too. You don't have to feel stuck in the place that you're in. You can change things. You are the only one who gets to decide what you're going to do today and what you're going to think today. And when I'm good at that, I can help them see that in themselves as well. And then pass that on to friends, right? Like I've seen them do that as well, where they share those ideas, or they stand up confidently within their peer group, and that makes a difference again in the next line, right? So
that's a beautiful example, Leona, of modeling that strength and giving them permission to develop their strengths. And even then the next step, to share that, the confidence to share it. That's a fabulous example.
And being vulnerable enough in the moment of the change, right? Where it's like, oh, this is really hard. Like I've never been overly honest with my kid, like too honest, but I've been really honest in the fact of like, this is a really hard season for me right now. I'm trying to figure this out, but I know I have to do this, right? And so allowing them to see that it's not always easy, but the important things are important, whether they're going to be a challenge or not. But allowing them to see that vulnerability and that struggle, and then that success after is, it's important to me to be real for my kids too.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fabulous example. That's a really, really fabulous example. One I wished I'd been able to emulate when I had kids the age you do.
Well, I think as moms, we struggle to be perfect, and offer them this perfect life. And I guess I've seen that too many times, too close. I'm like, it's just not reality. Like we have to teach real things, right? And I'm just thankful that God pulled me up from where I was before. Like I struggled. I had a rough childhood, so I'm just thankful that like He took me and I listened.
Yeah. And that you have the confidence now to gift that.
Right.
And I think that's the real key here, is we all have those things in us to gift, but we have to open up to give them, Because if the doors are locked, we're not giving them.
Yeah.
So kudos to everyone. And I think we have to move on into chapter 10 because apparently I'm really slow with these chapters. So I'm going to do one main thing in chapter 10. Chapter 10 talks about 2 life paths. It talks about, I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And that's such a good poem of Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken. And I think your example, Leona, is a beautiful segue into this, because my very initial thought of this was the very bottom of that first chapter where it says, greatness is always in the moment of the decision, the moment where you decide to be vulnerable with your kids, the moment where you decide she has to take the swimming lessons, the moment where you decide you're willing to learn something the hard way so that you can give it to somebody else in an easier way. So that's kind of the key. And it's like we're either taking the choice that takes us up, or we're making the choice that takes us down. Because that middle road, it doesn't exist. The choice is either going up or it's going down. And so there's an assessment in this chapter, and it starts on page 153. And it's an assessment about 7 areas of our lives. And it's that assessment that says, am I going up in this area or am I going down in this area? And so I'd like us to just really think about this. And I am not going to ask anybody to share their assessment, so don't get all worried about that. And what I am going to do is actually, I'll put it in the chat right here. I'll put the areas. First of all, I got to figure out where the chat is. I'll put the chat and I'll put the areas, and then I'll talk just a little bit about what he says in the book about each area, and invite you to make a note in your journal or on your phone or anywhere else about whether you feel that this is an area that you're going above, you're going up in, or that you're going down in. So the first area we're going to talk about is health. And he says, are you building it every day? Are you building it in how you eat, or how you exercise, or your schedule, or your sleep, the ways you take care of yourself? Are you building toward that greater feeling of health and vibrancy every day? Or does it feel like you're making more and more withdrawals from your life energy bank account and the balance is decreasing? So are you on the upside or the downside in the area of health? The second one, he says, is let's take an honest look at your level of happiness. And the way he describes this is, do you take time every day to notice those things you're grateful for? Do you make a habit of looking at things in a positive light or a negative light? Do you practice savoring the moment and regularly expressing your appreciation of others? Do you engage regularly in activities that are meaningful to you? Things you do not because you have to, but because you want to. Are you building greater happiness every day, or is it drifting further away? The third one is, let's take an honest look at your friendships and close relationships. He says, is the number of friends in your life, people with whom you stay in touch, with whom you share meaningful exchanges and mutually enriching experiences, is it growing or is it diminishing? He says, and I found this one interesting, if you're married, would you describe your marriage as a plant? A plant that's growing taller, riper, fuller, richer with each passing year? What about your family? Children, parents, brothers, sisters? Are the relationships getting deeper and richer, or more distant and shallower? The last 2 years of COVID, where we've had to be more distant so much of the time, have challenged this area, I think, for many, many people in finding ways to create richer, deeper experiences. Okay, so this fourth one is personal development. Are you learning more about yourself, about the world around you, and about how life works every day? Are you learning new skills, sharpening old ones? Are you becoming a more capable person, one more interesting to know and valuable to be around? Or is your character being gradually etched with the age lines of disappointment, disillusionment, boredom, and bitterness? And I would love to say that all the people on this screen and that listen in the future are on the upside on the personal development one, just by listening and reading books together. Then let's look at finances. Are you building assets and putting money into a long-term plan to create true financial freedom? Is your net worth growing? Are you living within your means and investing a portion of your income into a program that will build equity for you over the years, growing dollar by dollar, picking up momentum? Or are you living on credit, on borrowed money, as well as borrowed time, digging yourself deeper and deeper into a hole that grows harder to escape? This isn't about the amount of income that you're generating. This is about what are you doing with the income you're generating. Okay, so the next one is career. Is your professional life growing every day? Are you moving along a path taking you toward greater accomplishment and fulfillment? Is your work growing not only in financial rewards, but also in your sense of meaningful contribution, personal satisfaction, and respect among your peers? And sometimes we only judge this based on the number of dollars that actually show up on that net revenue sheet. That's not what he's saying here about career. There's more pieces to your career in terms of contribution. And then his last one is positive impact on the world. What kind of an impact are you having on the people around you? How is the world different as a result of you being here? After you leave this world, what will you leave behind as a legacy? And how will people remember you? When you add together your career, professional, relationships, personal, your sense of connection with nature, humanity, and God, how would you describe the overall value or meaning of your life? And is that sense growing stronger, deeper, richer, more powerful every day, month, and year? And I think our earlier conversation here this morning, we've given great examples of how small things are creating bigger and bigger contributions in terms of our positive impact. So when you kind of look at that overview of the ups and downs, his comment is there's no treading water in life, no running in place. Everything's in motion. If you're not improving, enriching, building, unfolding, or you're not adding assets, then you're headed on the downward curve. And it's that daily choice, that moment for reflection of looking at where you are and thinking about where you want to be. Am I where I want to be? Do I want to keep moving upward? Do I want to start moving downward? Am I happy in all the areas? Is there one more penny somewhere where I'd like to either start or stop? This is the chapter where he talks about how many times we hear no versus how many times we hear yes. And our commitment to go forward with that. So when you did your assessment, my question is not how many ups and downs. My question is, when you did it, does it reflect how you're feeling about your life right now? And if yes, why? And if no, why? Leona, I think you're unmuted. I could invite you to begin.
Well, I haven't done the assessment because I don't have the book. This is me just jumping back in.
Oh, it's the up and down. Like it's what, 7 things, either 7 upwards or 7 downwards. That's it. That's the assessment.
Well, listening to the list you gave, and just trying to remember a few of them, I know there's a couple that are not up. And but there are a couple that are up. And so I know there are still some things in life that I am still working on, or that we're still working on as a couple, right? My husband and I. So yeah, I would say as best as I can figure out there, that would be a good reflection of where we're at in life, right? We're still working on a few things, and that's probably why there's still a bit more struggle than I would prefer.
And I think the thing is, sometimes we do these and then we're like, oh my goodness, this is not as good as where I thought I was. Or we do it, we think, oh my goodness, actually, I wasn't giving myself enough credit for what I was doing.
Yeah.
And actually, that's where I was when I was doing those little ups and downs. It's like, oh, well, yes, I could be better. Absolutely. But it's not so bad.
I think the
be
major
fine.
one, that, like the one I'm still working on the most, would be the financial part. That one is still like, not where I want it to be. But I'm only halfway through life. So I guess I have,
You have
or
lots of
halfway,
time.
I assume I'm halfway. Who really knows?
Lots of
But,
time.
you know, so lots of work to still go in that area, but it's good to know where you want to work on, right? What are the things that you still need to grow in, right? And where you've come. I love that you said that too, where you've already come. And I can look back, like we've been married, my husband would laugh right now because he knows and I don't, 20-ish years. And
Perfect.
and we are not the same people that we were then, right? And we've done a ton of growing, some intentional, some not intentional, but we've definitely come a long ways from where we were when we first started. And to have goals and dreams and plans and all of that, right? And to see some of them come to fruition is proof that we have had some ups, and it's good.
And it's good. And actually taking that moment to appreciate that you've had some ups.
Yeah.
And that you've come a long ways. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Who else? Did your ups and downs reflect where you thought you were, Amy?
Yes, I liked all the different categories and the way they were worded. And I guess what really struck me was the focus and intent and how that waves. So when you're focused on one and you're moving on that one, that doesn't necessarily mean that others are going down. It may mean that, oh, ouch, that one I wasn't focused on and it's not up. It's not where I wanted it to be. It's not going in the direction I want it to be. And so just that tidal wave or shifting of focus and that expectation, and Leona mentioned it, like all the balls in the air and they're all glass balls. And well, actually, a juggler is only touching one ball at a time for a brief second. So figuring out which one you're focused on and which one, where are the big ones, the glass ones, because in life, there's actually very few that are really thin crystal glass. A lot of them are glass, but they're thick, they're durable.
If they were all thin crystal, my God, my balls would have been all crashed into little tiny pieces many, many years ago.
Mm.
Yeah. And I love your example, Amy, that you're only actually touching one ball at a time. Yes, sometimes you have to switch focus fairly quickly as a juggler and as a mom. But it's one thing at a time.
Can I add on to that for a second, Amy? Something came to mind. And I know like you ladies are all faith-filled, so I can share this with knowing that you'll get it. But don't forget too, like the Holy Spirit's intervention, right? It's if those glass balls are about, to shatter, I know that he will be there to do that supernatural, holding them up until you get your hand over there to get it ready for the next one. Right. So, I mean, he knows what we're working on. He encourages us to work on the things that we need to. And he's there to hold on to the others, right? While he's holding on to us while we're working on that thing. So, yeah. But I do like the thickness of the glass ball idea too. I hadn't thought about it that way. That's good.
I think there's always another way to think about it, and that's the blessing of having people share what they're viewing and what they're seeing. I just want to say today, I appreciate all you ladies 1,000,000% for being willing to engage and share and participate and have a conversation. Have a fabulous week, an absolutely incredible week. And we will see everybody here next Saturday morning at 9 o'clock for chapters 11 and 12. Yes, Kelsey. Bye.
Bye.
Yay, thank you.